So good morning and good afternoon. Today is March 27th, 2020. I'm giving you the date because things are changing rapidly and we are doing these webinars once a week. So if you're on the call live, you're going to have the opportunity to ask questions. There should be a button where you can type in your questions. I will be notified that I have a question that hasn't been answered, and I'll be able to answer it during the webinar today. We're going to cover what's going on in the economy. We're going to talk about what's going on with taxes. We're going to be talking about some of the bills that are in front of Congress and the Senate and soon to be in front of the president right now. We're going to cover a lot of things. We're going to talk about controllables and uncontrollables. We're going to cover a lot of ground in a very short period of time. So once again, if you're watching this recording, make sure you pay attention to the date and that you check to see if there have been any updated webinars since. You will have an opportunity after this meeting to be able to download and watch this video. We're going to send out an email with the video recording in case you miss any part of it. And we'll also have a link to the video that we did last Friday. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's start with talking a little bit, and I'm going to be sharing my screen here. So let's start right off the bat with what is going on, and bear with me. So hopefully all of you can see the screen. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs, you know, cool heads, calm thinking is what we need right now. So one of the things I want to start with, or I want to talk about right off the bat, is what's going on. And I like to think of things in two buckets right now. So hopefully you can see the screen here behind me. I'm going to adjust a little bit. But we have two buckets right now that are really in full effect. The first bucket is what I'm calling our red bucket. So if you think about it in terms of a red bucket, and we will talk in terms of a blue bucket. So by now you are seeing that I do not get paid to draw, right? So when we talk about red bucket stuff, we're talking about things that are uncontrollable. And when I talk about blue bucket things, I'm talking about things that actually we do have control of or that are controllable. Hopefully everyone can see that. So let's first talk a little bit about the uncontrollable buckets. You know, one of our uncontrollable buckets that's out there right now is the media. The media is a huge uncontrollable bucket for us. So I'm going to do a share screen. So you should be able to see, and let me adjust my view here. You have to think in terms of what's the media's number one goal. The media's number one goal is really ratings. And when things are going good, the number one tactic they use to generate ratings is greed. When things are going bad, the number one thing they use is fear. You have fear, panic. The more they can express that, the better their ratings. You have to keep in mind, we have no control over that. It's kind of like trying to find wisdom. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. There is a lot of media and a lot of attention drawn on this, but there's very little wisdom, it seems, at the moment. And really, when emotions take over, I shared this with you last week, it can be a bit stressful. We are now over 2 billion mentions in the media about the coronavirus, which is way more than we ever heard about when we were talking about Ebola. So one of the things that I have to think about right now is, what exactly is the media's goal? Well, the media's goal is to generate viewers and readers. So is that something that we have control over right now? We don't have control over that. Politicians, we've got politics that are going on. So I don't care whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, it really doesn't matter. Their goal is the same. They want to use this to their political advantage, whether it is your mayor, a governor, city politicians, congressional politicians, senators, even the president. I jokingly said, how many times are we going to be reminded that the World Health Organization thought Trump was an idiot for banning travel to China when he did, Now it turns out he was right. So we're going to hear about that every single time he's in front of a podium. Okay, I get it. That was a good move. Brilliant. You can stop telling me about it. But the reality is that that's happening on both sides. So I don't have control over that, nor do you. So which bucket are we filling? So if I start to put my feelings into the uncontrollable bucket, what happens? I begin to get stressed, I get upset, I get angry, but I have no control over those things. We had, I think the politicians were on the phone, 200 congressional politicians on the phone. They were talking about trying to pass a stimulus bill, and one of the politicians said out loud on a recorded line, hey, this is going to be a great opportunity for us to move our agenda forward. Oh my gosh, what a bonehead move to do. Now they're all thinking it, make no mistake. All of them are thinking that right now. The reality is they're all going to try to use it to their benefit. That is uncontrollable. Just know it is so. There's no sense in getting upset or angry about it because we don't have any control over it. Think about your language that you're using as you're talking to people. Are your conversations around the things that you cannot control, or are they around the things that you can control? So what are some of the things that we can't control? The media, government response, politicians, the actual virus itself, the coronavirus, the lockdown. Oh my gosh, they locked down. We can't go to work. That is not in your control. Waiting it out, that's not in our control. I wish this never would have happened. Okay, that's fine. You can wish that, but what's happening today with the virus? What's going on right now? When is it going to end? These are all things we don't have control over. But what we should be thinking on are the things that we do have control over. So when I talk about picturing or putting things into perspective, we're going to spend a little bit of time today to just add some perspective for you, our clients, but we've also opened up this meeting to other folks as well. So I want to use this as an opportunity to put perspective for everyone who is watching. What are some of the things that we can control? We can control our own actions. We can control the way we think. We can control the way we respond. We can control whether or not we are leaders in our community or whether or not we are panic inducers. So think in terms of strategy. In our situation with where the media is right now, or where the media is today and where things are going, we don't have control over what the media is going to report. I mentioned that there's over 2 billion mentions on the media of the coronavirus. I can't control that. Why are they talking about it so much? I don't know. It's a political thing. It's something that's going to generate everybody's tuning in to see what the newest news is today. So just understand that that's going to happen. But let's use some perspective now as we look forward. So one of the things I think about is, what are the number of virus cases per 100,000 of the population? So in China, it was 6. In Italy, it's 123. In the United States, it's about 21. So the next question becomes, so what are the mortality? What's the mortality per 100,000 people? In the United States right now, it's 0.32. In Italy, 12.41. Much older population in Italy. They did not get a handle on it right away. Germany, 0.27. South Korea, 0.25. China, 0.24. Now, what are the mortality rates that are associated with this? So the US mortality at 1.5 would be 1,037. Now, I don't want to diminish the coronavirus or the fact that people are losing their lives over it, but I do want to add some perspective as to how we should be thinking about this. In this, and I'm going to use a pen to mark this out, there we are expecting at 1.5 mortality, that's 1,037 deaths. Globally, 22,156. Now let's compare that to the flu, 55,000. Let's compare it to heart disease, 650,000. The reality could be that all of the stress and the panic induced by the media is more likely to kill you via a heart attack than actually killing you via the coronavirus. Let's talk a little bit about what the response is to this. I mean, if I go in here and look, here's our mortality rates. The flu taking out 55,000 versus the coronavirus taking out 1,000. Which one is worse? Well, I don't know. Here's the point that I want to make, and let me clear or erase all of this. Here's the point that I want to make. At what point does the cure become more deadly than the disease? So I'm going to use this just as a way to make a point or a reference. Over here, auto accidents are responsible for 1.2 million deaths per year. Now think about it in terms of this. What is it worth to us to prevent 1,000 people from dying? The cost via all the stimulus that we're currently looking at is going to be about $1 trillion a month. The bill that they're putting through is a $2 trillion package. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but keep in mind that's 10% of what our national deficit is right now. Well, we know statistically that most accidents are for people under the age of 30 and over the age of 70. So if we really want to reduce mortality, perhaps we could just say, hey, if you're under 30, you can't drive, and if you're over 70, you can't drive. Now, obviously, we're not going to do that. Why? It's too high of a price to pay. Well, the question mark is becoming for us, how high is the price right now of what we're paying to minimize the mortality on this? So that's a great question that needs to be answered. I don't know the answer right now. New corona cases per day in the US, you're going to notice how it's going up, going up, going up. Why is it going up so much? I want to bring your attention to a slide we talked about before. Now, if you look at this, the bell curve in China, you'll notice that there is an odd day in here to where right here we see a huge number. Why did we get such a huge number on that day? Well, the reason for that was that's when they introduced new testing. New testing became available. They were able to test more people, and boom, the number skyrocketed. Well, guess what's going on right now in the United States? We've got way more tests. When we first got into this beginning phases of this bell curve, we're limited on the number of tests that were out there. So as we move forward, what are we going to see? We're going to see a lot more cases as we move forward. So I want to inform people that it's not that it is exploding. There's a whole lot of people out there that are undiagnosed at the moment. So we're going to be seeing that a lot more. One of the other things to talk about is what are the protective measures that are being taken? Well, we're taking a lot of protective measures. We have basically shut down the U.S. economy. And the reason that they're doing that is they want to keep this line. So if you can pay attention here, this line that's going right here, this is our health system capacity. We are trying to spread out the timing on the virus so that we can keep our healthcare systems from being overrun. Now, if you look at cases or a curve when they don't have protective measures in place, you'll notice that the number is very steep very quickly, but then goes down very quickly as well. In a case with protective measures, we're going to lengthen the amount of time that we have it going on, and we're flattening out the curve. So what does that look like for us as we move forward? Well, think in terms of if we have containment policies, flatten the medical curve. So this is new cases without the containment policies. They go up very high. Oops, back up here a second. They go up very high, very quickly, and then they drop also fairly quickly by comparison standards. If we are containing it, we are actually stretching out the time frame on the virus. Does that make sense? I hope that it does. I'm asking the question, and of course you guys aren't able to answer, but here's the downside to this. Here is a recession without containment policies. A recession is very quick and then dissipates fairly quickly as well. When you enact containment policies, once again, we're going to stretch out the amount of time that it takes to recover. So the biggest question for us right now is, how long is it going to take to get the virus under control? How long is it going to take in order to recognize, okay, here's where we are. Now we're on the downside. Until we get to the top of that bell curve, we're going to continue to see uncertainty and volatility in the markets. So that's a big thing that I want to tell people. Now I'm getting a lot of questions about, okay, is right now the right time to invest? I don't know. Here's why I don't know. The reality is that we're going to have to look at what is your time horizon on this. So when I talk about time horizons, people will say, okay, when is the right time to invest? And I say, well, what is your time frame? If your time frame is 1 day, I have no idea if now is the right time to invest or not. The reality is that the statistics show me that if I'm looking at in regards to what the market does on a daily basis, then my timing is going to be that there's about, I don't know, I want to say it's about 56% of the time the market is up and somewhere around 40% of the time the market is down, if I'm looking at it on a daily basis. If I'm looking at it on a monthly basis, my numbers are going to shift a bit. If I look at it on an annual basis, my numbers are going to shift even more. So I've got an email that I'm going to put out on that about when is a good time. But the question mark that I have to ask people is, what's your time horizon? If I'm trying to pick the bottom, I'll tell you, I can't pick the bottom. There's a whole bunch of people that have picked the bottom already. Now, there's an old saying, a broken clock is right twice a day. So what I think about in terms of this is, well, who's going to be right? They're all making educated guesses. This week, we saw a very good bounce in the market. So does that mean that the turbulent times are over? I don't think so. I think we've got more volatility to come because we have more uncertainty. There's a lot of hope that the stimulus package that's been put in front of, that the Senate passed through 60-40, or got more than 60 votes, that's in front of Congress right now, is going to go all the way through. Now, there's a lot of hope around that. Now, we don't know exactly what all the details are in those bills because we haven't seen them, but we've been hearing about them. Well, those things are going to take a little bit of time to implement. But the biggest key or the biggest factor for the market is really going to be how quickly are we going to be able to get on the downside of this curve. So part of the reason that they're trying to flatten or stretch that curve is because I believe, and it's my opinion, that they're trying to push this into the summer, reduce the cases, and buy time to get a vaccine, a cure, or treatment for the coronavirus. Once that happens, I believe we're going to see the markets go up and we're going to have really good times again. Now, here's the kicker for you. It can get worse before it gets better. But if we have a plan in place for the long term, which for my clients that are listening, we do, then we don't have to worry. We don't have to be concerned about what is going on with the markets right now today, because we know in the long run, we're going to be okay. So with that in mind, one of the things that I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about right now is, I'm going to pull up the slide and share the screen on this. So bear with me. All right. Let me stop sharing first. Okay, technical difficulties as always. It seems I will have some technical difficulties. So if you invested $1 million 5 years ago, how much would you have right now today? You'd have about 1.26 according to the Dow. You'd have about 1.25 according to the S&P, a 4.6% return. When is the best time to invest? So here's another news slide I shared before. The entire Trump stock market rally is nearly gone. I'm going to stop and say, listen, isn't it great that we had a rally right before this happened, as opposed to it being 2009 coming off a financial crisis to have it happen? So let's look at what the good things are and try to keep our thought processes in the blue bucket, or the things that we have control over, not the things that we don't have control over. Now, with that being said, I also had someone that called me and said, hey, I've got $5,000 I want to put in the market. And I said, okay, well, what is your time frame? What's your time horizon? That's okay if you're wanting to do that, but to what end, to what purpose? And they said, well, I want to buy a new car next month. That's about 30,000. I just wanted to see if you can make 5 turn into 30 over the course of the next month. I said, okay, good luck. I'm not going to be the guy for you on that. The reality is you have to look long-term with your investing. Think in terms of what you're going to need. You need a good emergency fund. You need buckets. I've had all of these conversations with our clients in the past. We need to have enough money that is in our emergency fund or our bucket that is not at risk in the market to make sure that we take care of our bills and the essentials and the things that we need as we move forward. Money that we have in the market when the markets come down, we don't want to pull from the market while they're down. It is a good opportunity to put into the market, but have a plan or a strategy in place on how you're going to do it. I've told people last week and this week, I'm not buying in the market right now. I think we've got a bit of a false bottom, and I think we're going to have some more volatility over the weeks and maybe a month or so to come. Now, with that in mind, when we do recover, I believe it will happen fairly quickly, because we're going to have a lot of people that have been cooped up. And once we get on the backside of this virus where our numbers start to go down, and make no mistake, they're going to go up before they go down, because we have testing capabilities allowing us to test way more people. So we're going to be able to identify who has it, which is going to help in terms of kind of looking at each cluster and slowing the spread of the virus down. Also keep in mind that at some point, we're going to have to crawl our way back out of the debt that we've now created. So anytime the president has declared war on the virus, anytime you're at war, they don't think about what the cost is to win the war. And that's currently where we are. One of the things that I think about is with the quantitative bill or the easing or the things that they're doing right now. I read just the other day, we have now taken measures with the spending, with what the Fed is doing and what they're trying to pass in Congress. We have been able to accomplish in 2 weeks, just with the Fed things, in 2 weeks, what back in 08 and 09, it took 8 months to a year and a half to accomplish. We accomplished that in 2 weeks with the Fed policy and changes, because the Fed, the administration, and the U.S. Treasury are all working together to provide some stability to the economy. So these are all good things and good news, and part of what has spurred our bounce or recovery a little bit in the market this week. But we're not going to see a full recovery until we have this pop in our numbers of how many people actually have it, and we get on the backside where that curve starts to go down. So as we go through these things right now, a couple things that you need to keep in mind and remember is that number one, we do have a plan in place. We're following the plan that we have. That's the first thing to think about. The second thing to think about is you don't need to be concerned, because we are currently prepared. We're prepared. You're prepared. We don't have to be concerned with the short term, because we are long-term investors in how we're looking at things. Your retirement isn't going to be a day. It's not going to be a week. It's not going to be a month. We're looking at a retirement as a chapter in your life, and to be prepared for that. So one of the things I want to assure you of is we're keeping on top of things. So now let's talk a little bit about some of the tax things that are going on. I've got a list of questions that some people have asked me, sent me via email. I'm going to check and see if I have any questions online right now. No. So I'm going to address some of the email questions that I got. The first is, oh, this is a good one. So I keep getting information. I had a client that called and said, I went so far as they were asking me for my bank information, my social security number, and my date of birth. And I just don't know if this is legit. And I said, okay, what are we talking about right now? And they said, well, I got an email that said, click here to get my $3,000 thing from the government. And they started clicking through it, and it started asking for their bank account. Do not click. It's called clickbait. Don't click on these things. If you want information about what's going on, what you want to do is go to the website. Number one, you can go to the website, which is the cdc.gov. If you go there, that's the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. There's a lot of information about the actual disease there. Note that you're not going to get an email from the IRS or from the federal government that asks you to put in any of your personal information so you can get a refund. Right now, in times of crisis, it's not only the media that's pouncing on it, it's also the hackers, it's the trollers, it's the people that are trying to steal your identity. So be very cognizant of the fact that you should not be clicking on links that if you don't know where they came from. The Centers for Disease Control is a great place to go. If you're having symptoms and you think you might, you can click on right there, a great big box. These are some of the symptoms: fever, cough, shortness of breath, trouble breathing, persistent pain or pressure in the chest, new confusion or inability to arouse, bluish lips or face. How do you protect yourself? There are there's some great flyers. There's videos on this website that will give you information that will help you. Now, as far as what's going on with the government bills and the things like that, here's what I want to tell you about this. There is so much information right now. We have the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act, the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, the tax credits and paid sick and paid family and medical leave, paid sick leave tax credits, paid family leave credits. We've got the CARE Act. There are so many things that are going on right now. What I'm going to tell you to do is just relax, take a deep breath, and if you have questions about certain tax things that are going to be available to you, then reach out. If we're doing your taxes, I know that Tim and Kelly right now are up on some of those things. Kelly has been bombarding me with information that's as it's coming out as it pertains to small businesses and payroll and forgivable loans versus grants versus how they're going to be used. So Kelly Walker, the newest member of our Strategic Alliance team, is working right now on figuring all these things out. Another piece or reference point that I want to point out to you is that they have extended the deadline to July 15th for filing your taxes and for paying your taxes without penalty. Now, I had emails that said, yes, but they haven't extended the state or the city deadlines or the school district deadlines, so I have to get the federal done in order to get those. Well, actually, that has been voted on and passed by the state. And I think as of yesterday, they announced they have also extended their deadline. So the main thing is don't panic on that. If you have specific questions about things that are related to your taxes, call us, ask them, shoot me an email, schedule a Zoom call with us. Obviously, Kelly and Tim are heading up all the taxes for our folks. If they're not currently doing your taxes, they're a great resource. Between the two of them, they have right at 90 years of experience. So great teams to have, great specialists to have on your team. And you can reach out to them directly. I had another question. Where do I get information about the symptoms and what do I do? CDC.gov. I showed that to you. If you think that maybe you have it, don't assume that you do. Go to the website, check it out. Call your doctor. They're currently doing with the healthcare organizations, they're doing phone calls to try to kind of evaluate the symptoms. Obviously, if you have an emergency, we did have a client that had flu-like symptoms, but actually had an emergency situation that took place. They went to the hospital. It turned out to be something that was not at all coronavirus related, but was causing some of the same kind of symptoms. So very important to stay cognizant of what is available and what isn't. I had a question that came in. So can I share this information with my family? Their advisors are not giving them this type of information or communicating as openly as you are. Yes, you can. We're going to send you a link following this video or this webinar, which would be a link that you can click on and download the video. You can share this with anybody that you want. We're trying to put out good information. I actually had back in 08, 09 was when I got into the business. I got into the business in 08. That's when the markets were in turmoil. Some of my first clients, one of the biggest things they told me was, you know, I haven't been able to get a hold of my advisor. So I don't know what's going on with my account. I don't know what's going on. That's horrible. absolutely horrible. I made a mental note of that way back then. And when things are going great, you will hear from me less. When things are in chaos like this, you're going to hear from me more, because the reality is we have a plan in place. So you're in a good situation if you're clients of ours. If you're not clients of ours, it would be worth your time to try to gather information from good sources. So if you want to share the information we're putting out, by all means, please do so. It's a good opportunity to maybe put the minds at ease for those that are related to you or friends of yours. So I would encourage you to do that. As we move forward into next week, so what's coming next week? I don't know. This is quite the roller coaster. Here's the one thing that I do know. If I am planning short term, I'm going to freak out. If I'm focusing on the things that I cannot control, I'm going to have a whole lot of stress. What we want to focus on are the things we do have control over. So having good diversified asset allocations, that we've controlled. Making preemptive moves prior to the market starting to decline. We've done that for our clients. We've done that for you. You're in good shape. Having the ability to capitalize when markets do turn around. We've done that. We're in good shape. We have the ability to control our own thoughts, and keeping our thoughts positive is going to be important. You want to be safe, but you also have to keep in mind that there is a lot of sensationalism that's going on right now in the media. Fear sells. Sensationalism sells, panic sells, and what they're trying to do is sell viewers, readers, because they're going to use advertising to fund their bills. So the more people tune in to the panic, the better those companies are going to do, and the more panic they're going to peddle. So keep that in mind. If you have in-depth questions, as always, feel free to reach out to us. The measures that we've taken at our office, we are working with a skeleton crew. Nicole and I are both in the office, and Nathan is in the office. Tim is working from home doing taxes. He will stop in and pick up things as he needs them. Kelly is also working from home. Our team, Jonathan, Danielle, Christina, are all working from home. We are still working. Everybody is doing well. Everybody is healthy, happy, and debatably wise here in the office. We are doing Zoom meetings every day. So we're doing Zoom meetings with clients. We're doing Zoom meetings with each other. So it's a great tool and something that we are planning on utilizing for many years to come. For those of you who are in the meeting, you're utilizing Zoom right now. It's very easy for us to do a Zoom meeting, a phone call. We can correspond via email. We're also mailing out letters and doing weekly, bi-weekly, tri-weekly newsletters just to keep you informed of the things that are going on. Main thing is keep your thoughts in the blue bucket. Don't panic. And this too shall pass. With every winter, there is a summer that follows. With every summer, there's a winter. We had a 12-year summer. We're going to have a very short winter because of the way this is set up. And then we're going to be back into summer again. So stay positive. If you need anything, don't hesitate to call on us. And we look forward to talking to all of you. Let's see, I got another question. No, that one has been answered. Okay, guys. So have a great weekend. God bless. And if you need us, call us.